And I will get us rocking and rolling here. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome. We are really delighted and honored that you are choosing to spend your morning learning about strong communities and the strong communities movement. My name is Sherry Strong. I am the partner and COO of Strong Communities, and I am going to get the privilege to introduce the person who will be presenting this morning. So again, thank you. Hopefully you have, it is, I should say the date, it's April 9th, 2020 at 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And I get the privilege of introducing our presenter this morning. So Lori Ware, is the CEO and co-creator of Strong Communities. Just a few things about her, just so you get to know her a little bit. Her achievements range from leading U.S. voice communications for Deloitte to serving as the executive director for Middle Tennessee Chamber of Commerce. I felt it important this morning to highlight a few things about Lori, just because of the times that we're in. Here's what you need to know this morning. She's no stranger to leading disaster recovery planning and also leading during crisis. I think, Lori, tell me if I'm wrong, your first exposure was during a planning, like very meticulous planning for the crisis anticipated in Y2K.
That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then she also
thankfully that didn't have to be implemented.
Yeah. Okay, good. I can't wait to hear more about that. She also led the U.S. voice communications for Deloitte during 9/11. And she was during, I think it was 2011 as well, that was 2001, 9/11, 2001. Then in 2011, she was had the opportunity, and it is an opportunity to lead in crisis, to turn around a very large school in Middle Tennessee because they were in crisis. And then, or I should say maybe before that, in 2010, she was serving as executive director of the Donaldson Hermitage Chamber when Nashville had their flood. So she is no stranger to leading through crisis and change. So I think this morning you're really going to enjoy hearing her perspective on how do you bring people together? What does that look like? And what does it mean for your community? Throughout her career in technology, Chamber of Commerce leadership, consulting, entrepreneurship, here's the thing. She's accumulated a diverse portfolio of skills and industry awareness. So I feel her keys to success, however, are her instinctive talent, and being able to recognize and develop unique contributions of individuals, teams, and volunteers. So I hope that you just lean in this morning, put away all the distractions that you might have around you, and that you walk away with this feeling empowered about where you can go in your community after today. So please help me welcome Lori Ware. May we do jazz hands? Yay!
Oh, thank you, Sherry. That was an incredibly generous introduction, and I thank you so much. It is a delight to be with you this morning. Sherry and I have been working with communities for quite some time, and so what we're going to introduce you to this morning is a model that we've been using for a bit, but that in relative to the time that we're in this moment, just becomes even more compelling of an approach for how we can lead in the midst of this pandemic. So I invite you to, to enjoy your coffee. We appreciate you being here. And first thing we want to do is to give you a 30,000 foot level view of what Strong Communities is from a macro perspective. And the whole purpose of Strong Communities has and continues to be to equip community leaders with an innovative approach. And originally, this was put together based on the school turnaround model, big influence, and looking at schools as the cornerstone of economic development within communities and the importance of them. And so the focus continues to be in healthy communities and in previous normal times, was to attract, develop, and retain people and industry and resources, and to work in that community to develop that strong workforce and local economy and community culture. And what we see as a result of people who and communities who are utilizing this approach is that they accelerate community engagement. Their employee experience numbers or engagement numbers elevate, see greater workplace satisfaction, and the list goes on and on and on. And I think probably the most relevant in this moment is expanding leadership development and building leadership infrastructure, uh, also returning to civil discourse, um, building a language that we all share so that we can work best together at our highest and best level. So the way that we do that is we focus on enhancing collaboration and cohesion. We've done it historically as a live workshop experience. And so, like many other small businesses in our world right now, we've been tipped on our axis a bit and are re-engineering how we meet with people and how we serve people. So we've done that historically and continue to do that with our clients that are individuals and teams. We do some coaching, community leaders, and everything from municipalities and school districts to not-for-profits. So that's a kind of an overarching. And we utilize this methodology, the purpose, outcome, and methods, because not only have we sat in many meetings, as I'm sure you have, maybe by show of hands here in just a second, how many of you have come to a webinar like this and about 5 minutes in gone, why in the world am I here? You know, who thought this would be meaningful to me? And you know, and our list of things we need to do is going on. So we use this so that people can right off the bat see this is who we are, why we do what we do, what happens as a result of what we do, and how we do it. So now we're going to move from a 30,000 foot to a 5,000 foot level and focus on what is this morning about. And so our purpose here is to introduce you to this movement. And if we do our job well, then you'll catch the buzz that is buzzing around the globe. And we hope to renew your hope for your community in the midst of all this uncertainty, and to raise your curiosity about your unique genius, which we'll share a bit more with you later. And we want to inspire you to be the neutral convener that brings your community leaders together, especially during this time. So the way that we'll do that is we'll offer you a bit of history. We'll talk a bit about why strengths, and then share some evidence of success of this approach, and then take a look at what's possible as a result of adopting a strengths-based approach to community engagement. So just a bit about us. We've been cultivating greatness since 2011 and utilizing a strengths-based philosophy for leadership teams, communities of all kinds since 2013. We leverage the Clifton Strengths Assessment by Gallup to identify the top 5 natural talents of individuals. And for those of you who are not familiar with this body of research, there's about 60 plus years of research behind this. It was, the impetus for it was an extraordinary man by the name of Dr. Donald Clifton, who one day noted that psychology and science had pretty much labeled everything in the world that is possible that could be wrong with a human being. And it begged the question for him, what would be possible if we focused on what is right with people? And from that, this research began. And now this assessment that Gallup administers has reached over 23 million people worldwide. And by revealing their natural patterns of thought, feeling, and behavior. So pretty much our instincts. We introduced Strong Communities in May of 2018. We piloted it via a development district in Southwest Tennessee and USDA. And to our surprise, delight, blessing, this movement has, in 18 months, in that first 18 months, it reached 14 states and 2 other countries simply by word of mouth, no intentional marketing on our part. So we recognized that the world is hungry to hear what is right with it and for a different approach. We bring this to all kinds of organizations, leadership programs, rural and distressed counties, faith-based communities, and of course we started with business communities via a cultural transformation path and through a series of workshops. We've been very, very honored to be awarded and recognized. The 2019 Rebuilding Tennessee Award for building leadership infrastructure was offered to us by the Tennessee Development District Association. Very, very proud that we were able to serve the state of Tennessee in that way. And also that the development district that worked with us to secure the USDA funding initially was awarded the 2018 National Association of Development Organizations Innovation Award for adopting and forwarding this approach in the 8 counties in Southwest Tennessee. So, so clearly we are experiencing the opportunity to serve lots of different people, and you may be curious at this point, so what is this strength thing all about? So I want to offer you just a quick visceral experience and ask if you have a piece of paper close by and a pen, if you will take just a moment to write your signature just as if you were signing a check. Lovely. Lovely. Okay, now just pop that pen into your other hand and repeat that exercise.
I'll unmute everybody right now.
Perfect, perfect. So, so let's talk about the first part of that exercise. What words would you all use to describe the first part of that exercise where you wrote with your dominant hand?
And I've unmuted everybody. If you're still muted, you will have to unmute yourself.
Okay, awesome. Who would be so bold on this Thursday morning as to offer a descriptive word around that?
Effortless.
Effortless. Yes, absolutely. One that we hear with regularity, easy, natural. The list goes on and on and on. And so who would be willing to offer a word, one or two folks who that describes the latter part of that experience where you tried to emulate your signature with your non-dominant hand?
Challenging. You had to think about it.
Yes, yes, it requires focus. So I'm curious, Sherry, if it required more focus, did you have a better outcome?
No, it was pretty ugly.
So by show of hand, was that a similar experience for everyone? Yeah. So so this is really indicative of the ease and fulfillment, candidly, when we play to our strengths. When we do what we do naturally well, we get into a flow. It energizes us, and we can just go on for hours and hours and hours. Anybody here?
Oops.
When you're doing things that you do instinctively well, you look up and hours have passed and you didn't even realize it. Anybody else have that? Such an indicator of playing to your strengths. We are conditioned in our culture for deficit-based thinking. And if you're like me, you may have spent the majority of your life trying to fix what you perceived was wrong with you. or maybe a performance review highlighted that for you. But what we know is that if we focus on what we do well, we amplify the odds of our success exponentially. In contrast to that, if we diligently work to fix our weaknesses, we will at best become mediocre. And so this whole body of research just proves that over and over and over again, that doing what you do instinctively well will deliver better outcomes individually and collectively. We like to take a quick look at engagement stats across the U.S. And I think this is especially interesting. It'll be interesting to see what this looks like going forward. Um, with respect to the conditions that we're under currently. So only about 30% of the workforce in the U.S. is what is termed as engaged. So basically people who are showing up with their A game, coming in committed to the mission, vision, values of the organization and utilizing their abilities to help the organization meet its goals. Over half of the U.S. population workforce are checked out. And we all know these folks. These are the folks who come in and they do what they are tasked with doing, but nothing more. They're not going to participate on a committee to support a nonprofit. They're not going to go the extra mile, stay late, come in early. All of those things that are discretionary effort. That's a pretty sad state of affairs. Then 18%, that remaining 18% are the folks that are just unhappy. And their dissatisfaction sometimes gets in the way of other people's productivity. Now, I tell people regularly, I've had an attitude about this group for a long time, had it for a long time, because I can't conceive, and you're on this call and probably nor can you, walking into an organization and being disruptive. So I really struggled with that because it's unimaginable to me personally. And then I realized, what's the possibility that we're asking them to write with their non-dominant hand all day long, or a large part of it? And what would be possible if we were able to understand what people instinctively did well and have a language for that, and then redirect their efforts into things that they could succeed in? So we feel like this is just a really important piece for us to look at always with respect to engagement. Now, what we know statistically is that people who focus on using their strengths are 3 times more likely to report an excellent quality of life and 6 times more engaged in their jobs. Folks, that was certainly true for me. I was in technology for almost 20 years and somehow managed to continue to elevate into various positions, but I lived in imposter syndrome. How many? You don't even have to say it. I'll just say 70% of the U.S. workforce lives in imposter syndrome. That fear that I'm not who they think I am. I don't have the capabilities that they think I do, and somebody's going to figure it out one of these days. So I had lived in that range and had led through some significant crises or preparation for them before I got this language that demystified how I was able to succeed in an industry that was not a natural fit for me. I had no passion around the industry itself. I had passion around the people. So this assessment and learning to play to my strengths was a game changer for me. In fact, it was the most liberating experience of my life. And I want to just quickly share what my results were, because it truly is the genius that I brought, that I had no awareness that I was bringing into organizations. And so my number 1 is connectedness, which is all about relationship building and an absolute knowing that we are all connected. Anybody who knows me well can tell you that everything in my life is like a pebble in a pond, and I instinctively see all of the connections like a rippling effect. And Sherry would tell you that I tend to use a lot of ands, because I may start with a comment, or we may start with a strategy, but because of all of the connections, I continue to say, and it would affect this, and it would affect that, and if we did this. So I do believe that everything that each of us does affects another. And in the midst of a world crisis, I think we are returning to an understanding that we are all connected. So this served me so beautifully in times of crisis, in that I could see all of the disparate parts and understand how they fit together, how they were connected. My second is Maximizer, and Maximizer is about taking things from great to extraordinary. You cannot polish a pearl enough in my mind's eye. And so I'm always about taking things to a new level. That served me beautifully throughout my career and throughout my life. I'm grateful to have the language for it now. My number three is strategic, and I want to I'll quickly share part of my 9/11 story with you, because when I got these results, I looked at this one and I read the description and I said, I'm not sure that that is really that much a part of me. And what I know now is that it's a huge driver in my life, and did demystify why I was able to function on 9/11 and in the weeks following in the way that I did. So on 9/11, the morning of 9/11, I had been up most of the night because we had a major cutover with one of our largest Deloitte offices in the world, in Los Angeles. And so during those times, I would generally stay and work from the house for a while in the morning. And I got a page. At the time, I'm responsible for US communications, voice communications. And I get a page from my team that says, please refrain from using the telephone until further notice. That's a pretty shocking text to receive. And so I immediately picked up the phone and called the team. And the one of our senior leaders answered the phone, and I said, "What is this text about? I thought maybe we'd been hacked or something." And she said, "Oh my gosh, you don't know what's happening. Turn on your television." I turned on the television, and immediately what happened was the second plane hit. And I can't even begin to articulate what happened for me in that moment. Just really sheer terror. And she said, Anthony who was the chief technology officer whom I reported to, is standing here and wants to speak to you. And he said, how quickly can you get here? I said, I'm a 7-minute commute. I'm on my way. He said, I want to know when you get here how we're going to restore. Because all of our communications for the entire tri-state area were hubbed at the World Financial Center, which was connected to the World Trade Center via a walking bridge. And we had lost all communications to all 5,000 employees in the tri-state area. And folks, I went on autopilot. I think probably most of us in leadership roles, even in this pandemic, we go on autopilot. There's not a lot of conscious thought. We just do what's instinctive for us. And so I got on a conference call with my team and just started asking questions. Will you get this? Will you get this? Will you pull numbers on that? Will you call this person? Will you call this vendor? And in 7 minutes, I pulled up to the back door. Somebody was waiting to park my car. And my team walked with me and handed me pieces of papers and briefed me on the walk to the war room. Now, if you've worked in technology at all, you're familiar with a war room. And in this scenario, it was a very large space with TVs monitoring everything that was going on in the world. And within it, there's a glass conference room. And when I got into the conference room, the CEO at that time said, "Is Lori Ware in the room?" Wow. Yes, sir. I'm here. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What is the plan? Now realize I have about 15 minutes between the time that I saw that plane hit and then being asked that question. And miraculously, I was able to articulate what we could do immediately and what we could begin to put in place. And as a result, I was well equipped, and I had an extraordinary team who within 12 hours secured the equipment from places in Nashville to augment our capacity to build 1,200 new voicemail boxes so that we could that our partners could communicate. We were able to negotiate with AT&T very quickly early that morning that our traffic would be rerouted out of the tri-state area before it ever got there, and would arrive in Nashville, Tennessee. So when I look back, what I know without a shadow of a doubt is that my capacity for strategy, which I describe to people all the time as two things: MapQuest of the mind, because it's all about looking for alternatives. What are the different ways we can do that, and then discerning instantaneously at the same time as the alternatives are surfacing, what's the most efficient path. And what a gift for me to have this language. And if you've heard the expression, you can't see the picture when you're inside the frame, that was what strategic was for me. It's that instinctual for me that I never realized that I had it. Futuristic is my number 4. I'm always drawn to possibility. I always see things, 10 years out. It's been extraordinary in the last couple of years to see what's happened in Nashville, Tennessee, because, 10 years ago, starting in 2008, or 12 years ago now, I was saying, y'all, we've got to, it's coming. We got to equip. We got to get these urban design overlays in place. And so I realize now that's who and how I am. I cannot not think that way. So finally, belief is my number 5, and belief is about a core set of values that's just a due north, and for me, it's very mission driven. I have always wanted to help people, and that, Sherry, thank you for highlighting that in your introduction. It's never been about it was never about technology. It was all about my passion for helping people succeed, and to do it by helping them discover what worked best for them in the equation that we had to offer. So I became passionate about other people experiencing this liberation and having a language for how they show up in the world in a way that no one else can. Now, you may or may not have taken the assessment, and it would be way cool if everybody you worked with could give you a little presentation like that on, hey, this is where I thrive, this is how I can contribute. How cool would that be if we just all had that tattooed on our forehead, right? When you meet somebody, it's like, oh, I see, I guess I see you. But one way that we can, get a feel for natural instinctive habits is to take a look at what folks do. So we're going to do a quick little exercise here called raise your hand if you always. So we're going to present a scenario, and then if you will, raise your hand if that applies to you. So we'll start with raise your hand if you always talk to people in elevators, airplanes, stores, wherever. Yeah, raise a hand if you will. Play with me. Thank you. So these are our people, right? We all need people. Write down a list of things to do and stick to it. So, oh, love it. So these are our folks who get stuff done. How about on the weekends? Yeah. Oh, I so appreciate you. Raise your hand if you always solve the plot of a movie before everyone else. Do you have to tell? And thank you for that. Raise your hand if you always tend to be skeptical until given some proof. Yeah. Give me some data and I can get behind you. How about pushing the elevator button to remind it that you're there? Anybody do that? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm here. Let's go. Let's get this started. Okay, so in summary, why this strengths-based approach? Well, it focuses on what works well, and we know, like we shared, that investing in your talents produces far greater success than focusing on your weaknesses. What we also know is that the odds of anyone in the world having the same top 5 results as you is 1 in 278,000. It's one of the most compelling pieces of why I originally took the assessment. And then I learned that the odds of anyone in the world having having the same top 5 and in the same order as you is 1 in 33.5 million. So what we know is that no one on this web conference grew up, even if you shared the same top 5 in the same order, you didn't grow up on the same street with the same family, you didn't have the same education or um, work background. You bring something to the world that only you can bring in the way that you bring it. You are truly, uniquely genius. Please hear that. In times of crisis, we tend to question ourselves about our capacity to lead. We question our decision making, and sometimes we can just feel a bit hopeless in the midst of that. And so, I want to invite you to, whether you have taken the assessment or not, to know that statistically you bring something no one else brings. So stand in confidence and trust your gut. Trust what you bring. Some evidence of success of utilizing this approach in communities, will highlight the state of Rhode Island because they really set a high bar. In 2013, they saw that they had the highest percentage of actively disengaged workers in the U.S. They were number 50. Um, and then there was another marker that they placed number 49 in, and that was on the metric around, at work, I get to use my strengths to do what I do best. They went from 49 to number 1 in that particular realm, and number 50 to 15 in just over 3 years, which is just amazing to me. So we want to just share that there's a remarkable impact on sharing this language. And within 3 years, they not only shifted those markers, but they increased their tourism dollars because people wanted to come in and see how they achieved these extraordinary results. Just as their results were coming in, we were formulating strong communities and began to utilize more of a grassroots approach. They utilized their state leadership program and still are doing extraordinary work in Rhode Island and beyond. So why now? Why is it so important that we focus on strengths and that we engage our communities in a conversation that is positive and supports and empowers people? Folks, we're dominantly in a state of fear right now. What we know is that what we focus on expands. And as a global community, the more fearful we are, the more of a tendency we're going to have to experience things that further make us afraid. Um, People are. I was on a call yesterday where we were talking about the fact um, that we have this media overload and that we've got to begin to buffer ourselves or regulate how much exposure we have. We want to be informed, but we don't want to spiral into just complete fear. So we want to help people move from fear to hope. And when we can be productive and make a contribution that is meaningful, it's much easier for us to move out of fear and into hope. So a little additional on why now. The truth of the matter is that business and other communities have already fallen into about 3 categories. So many small businesses are unable to survive this already. So have either closed or are close to it. Um, the most businesses in the US are a little more idle now than they have been, but they will survive, right? So they have this moment to take a breath and look at how they're doing business and how they can navigate these waters. And then the third are folks who are in the midst of this and are potentially essential businesses, and they're stressed out and re-engineering things as fast as they possibly can. And I was on a web conference yesterday with Patrick Lencioni, who wrote The Five Dysfunctions of a Team, and really, really appreciated some of the commentary that came out of that, some of the feedback among consultants across the country. And the most important thing that we can do right now is to lead well. And by leading well, we mean focus on organizational and community health. We're all focused on our physical health and ensuring that we stay safe. But we really need to focus on our organizational health and take this moment to fortify our leadership teams, keep people connected. And we want to encourage injecting a strengths-based approach into solving existing, not only existing problems, but evolving challenges. You know, when we consider what could be possible on the other side, now is the time that we can convene leaders and talk about what situations were daunting before and how this will exacerbate them, so that we can begin to galvanize around problem solving and creating solutions, via Zoom conferences and via collaboration and cohesion. Um, Also, embracing diverse perspectives. Every opportunity we have to expand our understanding of all that is right now and how it affects our business and communities, geographic communities, is we've got to bring diverse perspectives to the table. So we want to encourage people to slow down long enough to fortify the leadership team. We're noticing that teams are coming together and they're having, I'm trying to recall what it's like meeting stew, right? There's no focus. It's just everything that's going on, everybody's talking about. And so we want to encourage you to use a POM or use some methodology so that you can keep it focused on something that you can move forward, keep meetings focused, and rally people around temporary clarity. Y'all, none of us know how this is all going to unfold. It's a new story every day. But what we can do as leaders is we can provide some temporary clarity. In the midst of this, here's where we are, here's what we're doing, here is our plan to get to the other side of this together. And then over communicate it so that people consistently hear that it's going to be okay and we're going to get through it together, and this is the way we're going to do it. So always with strong communities, the possibilities are also to share that common language for what is oh so right with people and return to civil discourse, increasing employee engagement and community engagement, and attracting young talent. All those things that we're trying to do as communities to bring new people and more vitality economically into our communities. All of that still applies. The opportunity to instill confidence in individuals who maybe didn't believe that they had anything to offer. And then certainly, like in Rhode Island, to attract other cities and counties to learn more about what your community is doing. We actually offer a certification as a strong community to cities, counties, regions, or states who have 1% that have completed this assessment and had some training. That is in play today, and we're excited that there are communities who are competing now to reach that first designation. There will also be a 10% designation as we move forward. So just wanted to make you aware of that. A lot of times rallying around trying to accomplish something together is will lift people up in very significant ways. So what we do is empower people, strengthen organizations, and build those strong communities. And we typically find that having a bit of information under your belt now, that people are curious about how do you ignite your strong community. And so what we would offer is that if this resonates with you and you are hungry to um, to ha- have impact, to have a positive impact, especially right now, we'd invite you to host one of these events and to bring your community leaders together so that they can all understand and appreciate the resources that are available to them. Invite them, typically we would say invite them to experience a workshop. And right now we're not conducting live workshops, but we are producing virtual classroom and are excited about being able to convene community leaders through that platform. Also, identify a community initiative to champion. What is already challenging that you know will be exacerbated in your community, and get in front of it, make some progress toward it. And then lastly, we would invite you to engage in the global Strong Communities movement via strongcommunities.coach. So I want to just move over into our, let's see, y'all forgive me, let's see. Here we go. So this is our leadership and strengths mentoring platform, strongcommunities.coach. And we want to invite you to access these resources. We are offering this at no charge right now. You can simply go to strongcommunities.coach. This is where you'll land. You can click here on enroll today. And we have an option here for free. Just as an FYI, we have an Alexa briefing, an Alexa flash briefing on a daily basis. So if you're a podcast person, be sure and go in and look up Strong Community, use your strengths effectively, and you can get a daily dose via Alexa. So you'll choose that free membership, and it will walk you right through how you can become a part of this community. We have all kinds of resources available to you, and you're most welcome to take advantage of those. Also want to encourage you, if you have not taken the Clifton Strengths Assessment, you can go into the store under that same drop down and click on Strengths Assessment, and you will receive a code and a link to do that assessment within 24 hours. And then once you've completed it, we will get your reports to you. So, so that is available and accessible to you. And I will share with you as well that currently we offer web-based courses, and currently we are in the midst of delivering strengths-based 5 levels of leadership. So you can go in and register for this class. We're getting rave reviews on it. Sherry does an amazing job with it. And so we have 2 weeks behind us, and those are both recorded and available here as well. And then on Friday, we'll start with session number 3. So please take advantage of that and all the other resources that are available for you here. So what we like to say is that once you have your assessment, you will have a language for identifying your instinctive potential. We call it getting a PhD, and getting a PhD takes a few years, right? It's something that doesn't happen overnight. It is a cumulative process, and that's what our strengths journey is as well. And it starts with that assessment and identifying your potential. And then the H we call harness, harnessing your talent through this language of strengths, being able to really get intentional about utilizing these instinctive talents, and then developing it by contributing in ways that only you can. So please get started on that PhD. Go out to strong communities and get started. We would invite you to be a part of that and hope that you will. Next steps, accept that invitation, invest in a code if you've not experienced the assessment. And then lastly, reach out to the person who invited you to attend today and let them share with you what's going on in your market and how you can get plugged in to an incredibly positive, empowering, impactful movement. I want to just close, but before we actually, let's open up and see if anybody has any questions, Sherry. Just a quick Q&A.
I have unmuted everybody, but if you're muted, you can unmute yourself at this point if you have any questions, or you can type in the chat. I'd be happy to ask those for you. You did a great job, evidently, of explaining exactly what they can get. So, and anybody watching this recording, this is open to you as well. So if you're watching this recording, please, as Lori said, go to strongcommunities.coach and enroll today and take advantage of that sponsored membership for the next 12 months.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, want to share a couple of quotes with you in closing, and one is is the one that I am most leaning into during this time, and it's by Maya Angelou. And Maya said that hope and fear cannot occupy the same space. Invite one to stay. And so I find myself on a pendulum some days of trying to stay in mindfulness, and that pendulum swings. If I hear some news, it swings to fear, and then once I recognize that I'm being fearful, then I get really intentional about taking a breath and choosing hope, choosing possibility, knowing that we are living in unprecedented times, and that will be in history books forevermore. And so I invite you to join me in hope that this is going to be a catalyst. I see it as already being a catalyst for us returning to peace with ourselves, to peace and connection with each other, and peace and connection with the world. We're often told that strong communities is a path to world peace in just that way, one person and one community at a time. So hold with us the hope and the trust and the faith that this is going to produce some extraordinarily meaningful progress for us as a as a global community. And with respect to your hometown or your business community, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Thank you, Margaret Mead, for that, and many thanks to each of you for spending your time with us this morning. Stay safe, stay well. We look forward to connecting with you again soon. Ciao for now.
Bye, everyone.
There's Tracy.